So today we're going to take a look at the perspective tool. Now, to find the perspective tool, we have to change a setting. So we're going to go to Window, Toolbar, and for this we're going to choose Advanced, and that's going to change our toolbar, and it's going to give us a few more advanced tools. So here we have the perspective tool. Once you click on the perspective tool, you're going to get the perspective grid. And so with the perspective grid, we can make adjustments to fit the perspective that we're looking for. Now, if you're not familiar with perspective, okay, the horizon line is the eye level. It matches where you're standing from. We could change the eye level, so we could go a little higher. So that kind of gives us an up view, and then we could lower the eye level. So now it looks like we're looking up at an object. A mid-level, eye level. So we're looking at something directly. Here we could add columns. So if you're building or creating a box, product design, buildings, we could make our box lower. We could even shift. So if you want to design some kind of wall, so everything could move. We can move the whole grid around if we want to. When you open up the perspective tool, you're gonna have this little icon up here. So that's going to indicate which part of the grid you're working on. So if the blue is highlighted, this is activated. If you have the orange selected, that means this activated. If you have the bottom, the green selected, that means the ground is activated. So I'm going to build a box here using the perspective tool. 2-point perspective. We have 1 point here, vanishing point, and another vanishing point here. Okay, and again, if you're not familiar with perspective, vanishing points are used to draw all of our perspective lines too. So that's a vanishing point, and that's another vanishing point. Okay, so I have the blue side activated. If I want to draw something on there, I'm going to select my rectangular tool. I'm going to select the color, and now I could draw on the perspective grid. And now I want to draw on the orange side. Let's add a ground here. Also, if I haven't mentioned it before, a shortcut to hide all your tools is the tab. So click on the tab and it hides all your tools. I like to do that to kind of preview what I'm drawing. So if you have the perspective tool activated, there's 2 ways to deactivate it and hide the grid. So in this little icon, there's an X. So you can hit X here to deactivate. Or you could hit escape on your keyboard. Hit the escape button. I need to move this to the back. And now I have a 2-dimensional, well, I have a 2-point drawing of a box. All right, let me go back. So now I want to draw a box with the top here. Okay. I'm going to move my horizon line a little higher. And in order to see the top of the box, I have to move the box underneath the horizon line. So the top is going to be here. All right, so let's go back. I have the perspective tool activated. And I'm choosing a darker color for one side. In this case, it's going to be the right side. Now I need to draw the top. So for this step, I'm going to choose the bottom. Perspective tool activated. Click on the bottom, and I'm going to use the bottom for the top. And for the top, I'm going to use a lighter color since the light is going to be hitting for the top. Go back to my rectangular tool. And now I could draw the top. I'm zooming in because I need to make a few adjustments here. And notice that I have sharp corners. Let me zoom in if you don't see. So I'm going to need my stroke panel for that. So my shapes are set to have corners, but I want to round corners. I'm going to click here. That's going to soften the edge. Sometimes when you have a corner, it stands out a little too much. And that way it could blend in better. So I'm giving round corners to all my shapes. And it's easier to line up when you have round corners. So I suggest rounding off your corners. Okay, so now I have a box. Let me add a bottom, kind of like a shadow. So I'm going to choose a different color here. Rectangular tool. Okay, and let's deactivate. So now I have a box, a two-point perspective box, or cube. I should say cube. Arrange, send back. Now from here, I'm going to make a few adjustments. Make sure it's behind my cube. It's a little too dynamic, so I'm going to change the perspective a little by holding shift, making sure I keep that lined up. My cast shadow should align with this perspective here. Okay, there you go. Now we have a cube. Okay, so what if you have a design already made? Okay, so there you go. That's my toy box design. So I'm going to put these aside. I'm going to make sure I group it. Control G on a PC, Command G on a Mac to group. So I'm going to bring in my perspective tool. I kind of want to match this rectangle here. So maybe add a few more columns. I'm going to make these smaller. So first, let's start with the blue side. Make sure you have your perspective grid tool selected. I'm going to choose the blue side. Hold Control with the perspective tool selected. And now I placed my design in perspective. Hold Control if you want to make any adjustments, if you want to make it larger, so it fits your grid. Make sure I have the orange side selected. Control, and then move your design and snap it into the grid. Making a few adjustments. Okay, so now I'm going to draw the top. I'm going to select a different color for this. Go back to my perspective tool, select the bottom. Select my rectangular tool. And now I could draw a top. I'm just making a few adjustments here. And even though this is all grouped, you could use the selection tool to make adjustments. So I wasn't happy with my composition. So I'm adding a few adjustments here. So there you go. That's how you work with the perspective tool. You could build and draw directly on the perspective tool, or you can have a pre-made design and use the perspective tool to add and create dimensional cubes and boxes.